You know what I want to talk about today, bro? Um,
Sure.
what I want to start, I want to start how two guys
All
can go to high school together
right.
and
And actually do something?
and actually have an impact in the world beyond them.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Well, I will tell you, I always say growing up in Malden and stuff, if you told me when I was 17 and I skipped school to join the Army that day, that I'd hit 45 countries in all 50 states and be in presidential mansions and all this other, no way.
right?
Absolutely. Doesn't happen.
Kid from Malden, man. Kid
Exactly.
from Malden. So I would really like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about your life, some of your assignments, the impact of leadership on just being a
Sure.
fucking decent human being. I think we overthink it, man. We make
Absolutely. People
we
overthink
fucking
it.
make it more than it's supposed to be. And if you want, um, your last assignment at Bagram with that whole exfil and all that,
I wasn't in
fucking
Bagram. I was actually down in Kuwait and then I was in
oh,
Qatar. So
wherever
I was on the receiving end.
wherever
And
the fuck you were,
yeah, wherever I was, man.
you know,
There I was, minding my own business.
yeah.
That's
And
what
then
my book's
all
gonna
of a
say.
sudden,
Yeah, shit
see
happens in my
what
life, man.
happened was, well, I
Yeah.
mean, listen, you're a humble dude, man. There's about, in round terms, about a million uniform personnel in the army between active
All three components. Yep.
reserves and
National Guard.
National Guard, right? So about a
Yep.
million, nine and change. And of that nine and change, to be a general, and don't, oh, I
Yeah.
was only a one star. Fuck off, bro. I don't, were there a couple of hundred generals in the army?
So basically, it comes down to it's less than 1% of all Army officers will ever make it that high, right? It's a
Less than
very
1% of all
less than
army
1%
officers.
officers. Yeah.
Right.
So then it's really like what 0.0% of all.
Dude, you
I
were
started out as a private. So how many people as a private
you
you
went
want and
from
float up?
private. Listen, fucking, I want everybody to listen. You went from a private
Yep. It's 17.
at 17 to a fucking brigadier general of the United States Army, traveling around the world, solving world fucking leaders' problems.
It's been a ride,
Dude,
dude. It's been a ride, man.
dude.
So you're asking a question a lot of people ask of me, right? Like, how did you, knucklehead, do that? And I give a lot of motivate, or used to give a lot of motivational speeches, especially to soldiers and sailors and Marines, because
Yeah,
it's a joint world. And it's like, you know what? And it's kind of what you just said. If a knucklehead like me from Malden, Massachusetts, can actually do this, you can do it too. And
yeah,
they want the secret sauce and the formula. There really isn't, right? There's a whole bunch of things that go into that.
no
It,
doubt.
it, and so I'll say, so there's a lot of upbringing, right? So
Yep.
unfortunately for you, the folks listening for your podcast, we did grow up together, right? So
Yeah.
we did a lot of stupid things. It was all about meeting young ladies and maybe having some alcohol and stuff.
No, you know what? Let's not listen. I know what you want to do, man. You want to gloss over fucking high school.
I was going to go into it. I was going to
No,
go into
we're
it.
not going to
So,
gloss over high
but what I'm
school.
going to say is, right? So, our upbringing. If I don't have the upbringing, I don't have the family like you, because your
Right.
parents were friggin' awesome too, right?
Yep.
They're there. They were part of your family. I mean, they were there. They were in the moment. They were active in your life. Or at least
Yeah.
mine were, right?
Absolutely.
And my dad was a very popular guy because he very
My
massive
dad was a
moral
little
compass.
too popular, and that ended up
Yeah.
having some issues. But yeah,
Oh,
no doubt,
well, I
man.
won't go there. I didn't know that, man. I remember. So I haven't seen you since what? My house Christmas 1985. So it's been 40 years, dude.
It's been
And
40 years, man, since I've
40
given
years.
you a hug, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to get there. I don't believe in the virtual bullshit, so
No,
we'll
man,
get
I'm
there in
gonna make.
person.
I'm actually, next time I make my way up to Mass, we're gonna make a special stop up north, bro.
Yeah,
But
love to,
yeah,
love
you're
to.
right.
Yeah,
It's about surrounding yourself with people, right?
yep. So families, right? If I'm not from Malden, Massachusetts, I don't become a general officer because there's 50,000 people living, and Malden is not exactly not a non-tough city. It's interesting. It's on the outskirts of Boston, right?
Yep.
So it's not like Lexington and Bedford and Concord and all that niceties, right?
Right.
You had to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, but it was a close-knit community too. I knew all my neighbors 2 or 3 streets over.
Sure.
And if you got in trouble, man, they knew about it first. You got the schwacking by,
Yeah. Yeah. There
neighbors
was no
before they even go.
escaping,
Yeah.
accountability, right?
And now people, just like I was telling you about my problem down in South Carolina, right? You don't know your neighbors. Everybody's behind
Mm,
closed doors.
right.
So, that doesn't help for what you talk about a lot, right? Resiliency. If you don't
Sure.
have that foundation, that backing, you know, and we had to solve our own problems. We may have caused some of those problems, right? But at least my
No
father would
doubt.
say, hey,
No
you have a
doubt.
problem with a teacher or a coach, you handle it first. If it fleets up, then I'll step in.
Right.
But we don't do that. We saw, and then if you look at our little league coaches and our Pop Warner coaches, man, those were just guys who wanted to teach the game and make a difference. Usually police officers, firefighters, garbage men in Malden, right? A very
Yeah.
blue collar place. They didn't have kids on the team. Now, when my kid played, it was the friggin' coaches, their sons were on it, and they had to play the pitcher or they had to play,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Got
quarterback.
corrupted a little bit. Yeah,
Oh
man.
man, it's massive, right? And nobody and parents want to solve the problem, so they beat the crap out of refs and all that. So, anyways,
Yeah. You see all
so
that
there's that
crazy
part,
stuff,
right?
right?
And so then I got, because of the ability to grow up in Malden, and you got to be able to speak your mind, and you're not heard and stuff, right?
Right.
At least I came from an Italian Irish family that
Italian
loud,
and Irish,
yeah, it's
bro.
beautiful, man. A little bit of love, a little bit of drunk. It's all good.
Right.
Um, so you had to be able to speak your mind. You had to be able to negotiate with folks. I had brothers and sisters, you
Yeah.
want a little bit more food at the table or whatever it is, right? Or you
Yeah.
want the better gift, got to play the game a little bit. And that's life, right? That teaches you life skills. You just don't
Sure.
realize it. And so with all that, so if it wasn't for a whole lot of people that I luckily met throughout my life, no way I get to where I am. So I'm all about, I think I sent you a couple of things, but I'm all about building teams, the team of teams. So I don't give a crap about myself, never have, never will.
Right.
But if I take over a platoon, if I take over a company, I don't care if it's the worst one at the time in the Army. My goal is to make it the best by the time it's said and done. And that means building up other people, right? And you build
Yeah,
up
man.
other people, it's amazing the power in unity and focus. And my job has always been, I've never been a nitpicky guy down
Right.
I'm more the big picture. I read the situation, and I've been lucky enough to have a lot of experiences. Like
I was going to
I
say, but
said,
a lot of that has to come from, we always slam. We're still going to talk about high school, by the way, but we
okay,
always slam leadership, right? Fucking leadership.
it absolutely should.
It gets
It's all
it
about leadership, dude.
it
To
gets
me,
it sometimes, man. The conversation, we always, I don't know, for whatever, we're always drawn to the negative, right? But there
yep.
had to be a lot of great mentors
So I had
along the
great.
way.
I finally did. For a long time, I didn't think I did, but there were some, right? And I'm going to explain a couple of those because they opened my eyes and taught me some stuff, right?
Right.
But then you also learn from the negatives. So you have to go back. So I'm
Yeah,
17, I
absolutely.
do a couple of years in active duty. I think I told you we had such crappy leadership. I was in the old guard, right? So I won't mention too many units, but I was an MP. Man, we worked 12-hour shifts, 23 days straight. Officers were going home after 6 hours.
Yeah.
They were doing
That
anything,
whole
weekends
leading
off.
by example was kind of
Oh, did not
non-existent.
exist, man. It was just the opposite. And their goal
And
was
and just to frame this for the
yep,
listener, this is during a time of peace.
during time of peace. This is 85 to 87, man.
Nothing
You
going
know what
on
I'm
in
saying?
you're not
Yeah.
deployed anywhere. We
Nope.
haven't been attacked by terrorists yet,
Yeah.
right? This is just a pretty much
This is,
a peacetime unit.
yep. And but you learn some stuff. So I got out of there. I had a really negative attitude, man. There's a lot of things. I was telling you when we first talked a couple of days ago that, man, I went to college with an attitude. I didn't talk to people. I just shoved you out of my way if you were in my way. Didn't say excuse me. I was just a real, I don't know,
Insubordinate.
yeah, there we go.
There
Had
you
an
go.
attitude, chip on the shoulder. But I would
Yeah.
sit, but I had a purpose, right? My purpose was, so I ended up doing college in 3 years. It was right. And at the same time, I was going to OCS and stuff because what happened was I got out and for 2 years, I did a lot of drinking, did a lot of stupidity. And some guy, one of my brother's friends that you know pretty well, he was like, hey, stop whining about it and try to change it. Huh? Couldn't,
He
what are you
checked you,
talking about?
bro. He
He
checked you
said, right,
hard.
check it. I couldn't argue the point. So that's how I ended up going back in. And I ended up, realized that NCOs just love them to death. They're the backbone of the Army, backbone of any military, right? but the officers are the ones that make changes. It's just the way it is. No
Yep.
one's life is fair. It's just the way it is. So I ended up going the officer route, and I will tell you, I had two great mentors there that I didn't realize.
So you went,
OCS is,
you were a private, you went through the rank structure
yeah,
there at the
yeah,
old guard. You got a little soured on what was going on. You got out,
absolutely. Yep.
and then you went back in through an OCS route.
Officer candidate school. So you have to go back in, you know, I went back in as an E4 before I got to go to OCS, made the E5 thing, so it was just, it was in an MP unit, it was in the Mass National Guard.
Okay.
And so I had joined purposely, so I just have to wait for the timing of the school to open up, right? And so every state in the National Guard has their own OCS program. They're all sanctioned via Fort Benning or Fort Moore, whatever you want to call that thing now. But
They changed the name.
school,
Why'd they change the name, bro?
I'm gonna stay away from that.
All right, good, because that'll be another conversation.
That's another conversation, right?
Historic Fort Benning.
Historic Fort Benning, right? So that's the home of the infantry school, right? So
yep,
they have to come and bless off. So it's a no crap, right? So you can do it in the National Guard. They can do it a couple of ways. You can do it part-time, which is 1 week in the month, an annual training, which is 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks at the end. So it's about a year and a half. It's very painful because you don't just stay in the mindset. You got to go to college all week, and then you got to get down there and you get your butt. And there's a lot of power given to TAC officers, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But these two were really good. One ended up becoming a 2-star general, and I ended up linking back up with him at the Pentagon and stuff. Guy is phenomenal.
That must have been amazing, like hooking up with him after the fact. Like,
you know where I ended up linking up with him was down in Camp Shelby, Mississippi during Katrina. No power, chaos, and all of a sudden I see this guy was a tanker, right? So and you got these big leather tanker boots.
Yeah, man.
Red hair. He's from, he's from Melrose, but you would think he's from South Boston or something. The way he talked.
That's
right?
hysterical.
Right? And he had no neck, square head.
Right.
And our TAC NCO did 2 tours in Vietnam and stuff like that, right? And this guy had more hair on his neck than his head, square head. No, I'm like, what is it with this stuff? And so I go there, but and at first it was just, why are you yelling at me? I want out of this damn thing. And then it's like, wait a minute, this is just a game, right? So you gotta, just like anything in life, you gotta figure out the game. Once you figure out the system and you know it better than the person who created it, life is good, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I try to do. So I understand, and everybody was supposed to ship out for the first Gulf War. So they were going to actually send us all down to Benning. So that is literally, they took the hat off, talked to us, say, this is what, and this guy had done 2 tours in Vietnam, lost people, and it explained why he was a butthead in some areas, especially with accountability, because he lost a couple of guys because the squad leaders had said, when they were bugging out, looked at the squad leaders, said, we got everybody, yep, up. They didn't. They left an LPOP out there, right? So they died. So that's why he was so hardcore.
That's why he's a hard ass about that accountability.
Yes, but it should be
component,
it's right? Accountability. So this is the weird thing in the military, right? When you're a company commander in the National Guard, it's a little different than active duty. It used to be you had to sign for all your equipment. That's all the helmets, all the weapons, it's millions of dollars of equipment. So you spend like 3 days going through the inventory when you take over a command, right? And you're making sure because
you're signing for everything. Yep.
So and if you lose something when the next guy does it and it's not there, whatever it is, guess who pays?
Yeah.
You do. You're responsible. Gotcha. But you know what they don't make you sign for? People. What's the most valuable resource you have?
Right.
People. You never signed for them, and nobody ever held the feet to the fire when people would go AWOL because they're like, this is bullshit. I'm just wasting my time. Right. So
yeah, they don't make that you lose a helmet, the world ends.
Yep. Somebody
goes AWOL. A human body decides not to show.
If you want to shut down an entire installation in the world, you lose a weapon. Just everything stops, right? Or rounds or anything like that. People in the military understand that. So gave me a good foundation I'm like, okay, right. But I also had that foundation from the old guard, so I knew what right looked like because we had to wear dress blues all the time. We're in front of the president. We're all that crap, right?
But you guys were definitely dialed in there.
Yeah. And you got to see a little bit of the ugly side of politics, but you're still too low in the totem pole. You're just hating life.
Right.
So it was good on that one. So I will tell you where I learned the most from was my people, right? So I ended up moving to Maryland for a job in the federal government. And I get down there and I start running into a situation I run into a lot throughout my career. Somebody doesn't know me, and they just look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're a big rockhead from Boston. I talk funny. I'm big galoot, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, yeah, you're not for me, right? So I get down there and I'm like, "Hey, I need to transfer from the mass guard and it's not an automatic thing, right? Especially as an officer. So you got to go find a home for yourself. You got to take care of yourself." And I didn't really understand that. So finally hook up with the state headquarters down there, and they're like, "Hey, listen, we don't need you. We're full up." And if
Huh.
you know anything about the military, that's bullshit. There's no
Yeah.
full up. They're
No.
always hurting for numbers, especially second lieutenants. They come a dime a dozen, right? And I'm like, okay. So finally, this warrant officer takes a little pity on me, right? He says, "Hey, dude, how about you do this? How about you earn your way in?" I'm like, "I can do that. What are we doing here?" He goes, "How about you split train?" All right? Don't know what a split train is, right? Policies, procedures. You're too young. You don't understand. So split training is Massachusetts has to pay me, but I train with the unit down in Maryland, right?
Okay.
And that can happen, especially if you're traveling and stuff. You can tap into it because there's requirements that you have to meet, and it's all legit, right?
Right, right,
So
right.
they sign off, say that this guy did sign up for. I mean, he made the weekend. It goes back to Massachusetts company. They say, "Yep, he did his duty. He gets paid." And everything. So the only guy that would give me a chance was the guy that ran the OCS program for Maryland. So I go there, and he asked me the same question. Um, they asked me about joining OCS. They're like, "Why do you want to become an officer?" And I'm going to tell you, dude, it's never changed. And I've been told several times never to say what I'm about to say, right? I became an officer because I hate most officers. They're
Right.
scumbags, right? They're out for themselves. It's the system. Only 1%, right? So they look out for themselves. They might do some things, but it is an alpha male world, alpha female world. You've got to be so there's in a battalion, there's probably another 24, 25 second lieutenants. There's only one captain, there's only one in that company, right? So there's 4 or 5 of you fighting for that, and you need it. And then, there's 24 of you in the battalion. There's only one lieutenant colonel slot. So think about the filtering up. And
Right.
I'm from the outside. I'm coming from Massachusetts, right? So I say, hey, and the other thing is, the reason I became an officer was to prevent people from getting the attitude I used to have, right? I mean, I literally, they put me down at the end of the hall in the barracks, wouldn't let anybody come by. I mean, I was just a miserable son of a bitch.
Yeah, man. You were,
And
can I say you were a cancer?
I was a cancer. I was absolutely cancer.
Yeah,
They
man.
made it that way because I went
Right.
there to do
But
all sorts of
the
things.
end
But
result is
that's
still the
what, yeah.
same.
So leadership can make or break you, right? And in
Right.
this case, I was like, I'm gonna fight back.
Good.
And so, and I did, which is stupid, right? Because you never win that way. Not lesson learned, right? You learn, you're young. So, and the other thing is, when I ended up becoming a TAC officer at some point, right? And I would say at the beginning, like, "Listen, jackasses, um, here's my acid test. I got 2 kids. At the end of this program, if I trust you with my kids' lives, oh, you can graduate. If not, you're going to leave this
Yeah,
program."
that's the bar, man. That's the
Yeah,
threshold.
because I'm not going to give you somebody else's kids. If I'm not willing to give you mine, I'm not
Hey,
giving you somebody
man.
else's.
How about that concept?
Yeah. Because if you lose do you want to write that letter home? Right.
Right.
I mean, and so, and a lot of people become officers because they're like, "Hey, I don't have to do the dirty work. I don't
I
have to
have
clean
to
the
do, I'll
toilet.
do less. I want to
Yep,
do
I'll do
less.
less," when it's actually more, right?
Mm,
And so they think it's all about the benefits instead of the
right.
responsibilities. So if I saw that in you, I got rid of
Yeah,
you.
fucking
And I can't,
adios.
and I, so the problem is, right? It's numbers game, right? You cannot kick somebody out of a program politically, but they could
Copy.
drop.
Yeah, man.
So you
Yeah,
just
they
had to get
could
them to
drop.
so you had to get them to see the light, right? So it always interesting, right? So anyways, so I get down, so this guy lets me in, and so baptism by fire. Man, I go right into this 2 week friggin' training. They got a combined OCS phase one from 7 different states in the District of Columbia. Total friggin' chaos and stuff. So if an instructor doesn't show or planning needs to be done, they're throwing this dumbass second lieutenant in with no warning. No, hey, you go do this.
Yeah.
So I just did,
You're
right? I
up.
just did the thing. And so at the end, he goes, "Hey," because remember, everybody said there was no room for me. At the end of that
Right.
2 weeks, all of a sudden, I got an invitation to interview with every battalion commander, all 4 of the infantry battalions, the artillery battalion, the MP battalion, the engineer battalion. So I went, I did my thing, interviewed, and at the end, I didn't take any of them. Uh, I wanted to get the guy that let me do the split train was really a really good guy, and he was taking over an infantry battalion, and I was a finance guy,
Okay.
right? And like a dumb butt, and it wasn't what I liked. So thank God. So I said, "Hey, sir, nothing for nothing. You're taking over the battalion. Love to come with you." He goes,
Right.
"Absolutely." So he took me with, but he jammed me down this other guy's throat. So all of a sudden, I'm a second lieutenant, never been to officer basic course down in Benning or anything, non-infantry qualified, got at the time you used to wear your insignia on your uniform, so you knew I was a finance officer. And they made me an XO of this guy's infantry company.
Well, hey, I
And he
had that
wanted
that
me,
had to go over about as well as a fart in
like a fart in
church.
church, dude, like a fart in church.
Like
So this guy,
who the
this
fuck who is this suit taking over?
So
Oh,
so
bro.
he's like, so he's straight up. My buddy was going, I already had it picked. I don't know who the heck you think you are, blah, 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 blah. And he wouldn't talk to me and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't give a shit. Let's just see what's going on here. You know what? The two people that really ran that place were the supply sergeant and the NBC NCO, which is, nuclear biological chemical guy.
Right.
And so that falls under the XO's duties. Those and dude, you sit back and look, this guy, especially the supply side, but he was when he tried to sell his ideas to management, right, to the
Right.
company commander, the battalion commander, he was a pain in the ass. So they're like, just shut up and go draw on the line. You're a supply sergeant. I'm listening to him going, what the? This guy's got some fucking ideas, right?
Right.
And again, I got the upbringing I do. So when it came time for me to have to do something, I did. So jettison a couple years later. We were that company commander that I had. This was the funny part, right? I go to OBC, I come back, and we're all the officers are on a bus heading down to Fort AP Hill, and this guy is spouting off to all the other officers because he's a full timer too, right? He's like, hey, I told the old man that Joe doesn't know what the hell he's doing. This is bullshit. He should not be doing lanes training with a platoon. He shouldn't be an evaluator. Remember, Joe, I tried to save you from this pain that you're about to go through. And I'm like, really?
Hmm.
Let's see where this goes. Dude, at the end of those 2 weeks, only one officer got a friggin' Army Achievement Medal for doing an outstanding job in training and taking care of troops. And guess who had to pin that medal on me? That one
Ah,
guy,
that's awesome.
right? So about a year later, I'm under a different company commander, and our battalion commander, nice guy, right? But he was a businessman. So everything was about business. He was really high up in a TV station. I won't say which one or anything.
Right.
And so you'd have to go to these meetings with the brigade commander. He used to like show his paycheck, see how much I make. I'm like, what do I give a shit what you make? It doesn't affect
Yeah.
me whatsoever. Whatever, dude.
Yeah.
But before we got to that point, he wanted to interview all 25 lieutenants in the battalion about their futures. Because that's kind of a business thing, right?
Okay.
So I was the last guy in the chute, and it was during an annual training. And there's always two questions. Where do you see yourself in a year? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay, whatever, right? So
Right.
I go in there expecting that. And he goes, no, 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 Lieutenant Reale, let me tell you where I see you. I'm like, whoa, this is going. And I always salute when I walk in, military customs and courtesies. I'm all about that.
Right.
Absolutely, because there's a reason for it. Not that it gets you excited. There's a reason for it. It's the standard, right? You maintain the standard.
Right.
And so I do that. And he goes, yeah, I see Lieutenant Reale XO forever. Because a couple of his little spies were going around, they see me sleeping during the middle of the day. They didn't see me up at 2 o'clock in the morning getting all the gear ready for the guys and putting them on the bus at 3 in the morning. The only time I could sleep was next to the supply sergeant's desk in the middle of the day to catch a 2 or 3 hour nap, right? So they
Right.
thought I was a lazy bastard. So I'm like, and I got pissed. And my wife
Sure.
knows I have a problem with that, right? So,
Yeah.
and I just looked at him, I go, that's up. Stopped calling him sir, everything. He's not respecting me, right? I don't give a shit at this point. What you don't know is my wife is sitting on a donut back home. That son who's 2 weeks, 3 weeks old.
Right.
I didn't even have to be here. I just thought it was the right thing to do, right? And so some other stuff was going on. And so I was like, fuck this. I don't need this crap in my life, right? So I just looked at him and said, really? Is that it? Is that what you think? He's just looking at me. I said, I'll tell you what, you go ahead and make me the effing friggin' XO or the friggin' liaison officer of the brigade. I'm out of here. I don't need your shit. Is that the extent of our conversation? Are we done? He goes, yeah. I said, great. Turned around and I fucking left and slammed the door. No salute, no anything. I walked, because back then there's no cell phones, right? I had to walk to the front of the post, which is about a 2-3 mile walk at 11 o'clock at night. Call my wife. Hey, coming home.
Yeah. Hey,
Stop!
listen, give me a little heads up, sweetheart.
Yeah, I got to get rid of the other guy. But no, she goes, no. She knew I was pissed. I
Right.
was screaming. And she goes, oh, you need to chill out and at least stay
Yeah.
there an extra day. And so I did. I went, and so, I'm not going to let this son of a bitch beat me. So this guy's such a business guy. He actually makes all 25 lieutenants compete for the next company command that comes open. And they're dumb enough to give me an interview. And I'm like, okay. And I read the thing. It says it's a 15-minute interview, 5 minutes on your thoughts and theories of leadership, 5 minutes on your thoughts and theories of recruiting and retention of soldiers, and 5 minutes on operates on something. I forget what it was. So so I go back and I do my thing and I show up. Everybody else, they never said what to wear. So some guys were in their BDUs, some guys were in their class A's. I'm in a leather jacket and jeans. I did it on purpose. And the purpose was, hey, you're not paying me to be here. Just like any else, you're taking me away from my family. I came here straight from work, whatever. And I walked in there and there was 4 people that didn't like me on the board. The operations officer was a major, the XO, who was the one that downed me out, who was a major, and the sergeant major who couldn't stand me. And so I go in there and I just start handing out paper. I mean, people are trying to talk me out of going there. So I said, hey, sir, check it out. Here's 2 pieces of paper. I said, first one is my resume. Any job I've ever applied for, I put my resume, it's where I've been, what I've done, and stuff like that. And the other thing is what's important to me, my family, where I want to go and stuff. I said, because you made it perfectly obvious a month ago that you have no idea who I am. So that's what I'm all about. And I said, and by the way, can I talk off my notes? Because I drank a lot of beer with John Kelly a long time ago.
Yeah.
Souls are gone. I didn't say your name, but I did say it that way.
Yeah.
I'm almost us, right? I said, you mind? He goes, no, read. And I just spoke from the heart, leading troops. And a lot of it came from what that E6 said. And I used to hang out so they had a club afterwards, right? Not legit, but
right.
So I'd be the first person there on a Saturday morning. I'd be the last person leaving on a Sunday night talking to soldiers. They know what's going on. So it's not, I take their ideas and I blow them up to the friggin' major league level.
Right. You want to know what's going on, man. You don't talk, you talk to the people that are actually doing the work.
So after I do this, all the jaws are on the ground, right? I'm saying, hey, it's all about taking care of people, and this is how I do it, blah, blah, blah. And so with that, the first guy goes, hey, I got a question, according to FM, the operations manual.
Sure.
And I stopped laughing my ass off. I said, sir, do you realize how many lieutenants you have running around this building right now looking for that manual? I said, I can read the manual. I can't tell you what's in it right now because it's just not on the top of my brain, right? Because that's not what you asked in this interview. But I'll go get the manual and read it to you if you want.
Right. That's it.
I said, you got any other questions that don't entail this manual? He goes, no. It's okay. Next. Right. And the next guy was the senior full-time. He goes, hey, how would you use AGRs, which is active guard and reserve? I said, hey, I'd use them for, the purposes of guidance, man. These guys, they're here every day, man. They know the units. They're the ones that recruit the units. They're the ones that maintain it.
These are the mentors. These are the guys that I would use to mentor up people.
Absolutely, right? They know what's what, and they've been around for years.
Right.
And the sergeant major was hilarious. He goes, where the hell did you come from? I said, hey, sergeant major, you never liked me from day one. You never asked me my thoughts and theories. So I ended up with that company command, and it was the worst company. And the battalion staff gets me, battalion commander, said, hey, you got to go up there and kick some ass. So I went up there and I actually interviewed every single NCO in the company. And I was like, they've got it right. They've got it wrong. So we started doing our own thing. It's all about relationships, right? So
yeah, man.
That's how you build trust, right? Some things were missing. We had 13 AWOLs. I went and visited these people.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I'm going to put you in jail. Could I do that? Probably not. They didn't know that.
You know what, Joe?
Said, what's the one? Yeah.
The thing that I always found is that when you ask why.
Yep. Why'd you leave? And what's the one thing I can do right now to change you to come back? And we did that. So they all came back. I ended up going from 60% strength to 100% strength. I never trained with my brigade or my battalion. I was going overseas with UCOM and USERC because I made a deal with some guys. It's weird. You don't know who you're talking to sometimes, and 4 years later they can come up and catch you.
Right.
Right. And I'll give you another example of that. Right. I was an aide to the Chief of the National Guard Bureau. That allowed me to see behind the curtains. It really did. You're only supposed to do it for 1 year. And I did it for 3.5 years. you were in the White House, you were in the Senate Armed Services Committee, you were having dinner with the president of Serbia in the mansion overseas. Got to see things.
You are the fly on the wall.
Fly on the wall, right? So I met all the governors, either in their mansions, at their private homes or in their offices. And we used to have to take them into the box. I'd be the only Muldoon with them. It was my boss, four governors. They were mandated by the president to do this, to go visit their National Guard troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so, man, it's just me. And just to sit there and be a sponge, right? So
Right.
you can hear what they're looking for in their guards. Like, okay, that's why this is important. And this is right. And so that all comes into handy. So jettison to my last mission, when I showed up at Camp Buring the first day, I already knew to stop at the ambassador's to see her and say, hey, man, check it out. I know I look like a knucklehead from Boston, knuckle dragger and stuff, but I actually have a master's degree in this stuff. And I did from the Naval Postgraduate School on leadership and stuff and security. I said, we team up right now and you just tell me what you need. I'll get it done. I didn't realize, I thought I was going out there to see soldiers, right? Man, it was a joint interagency task force. I had SESers, senior executive service members from FBI, from, three-letter agencies, because you had to vet those people that are coming in. I didn't know that. I got there and I was like, whoop, okay, let me slow my roll a little bit. And
Yeah.
so I got them to the table, got them talking, because everybody always wants to deal with just the soldiers. Like, no, no, no. In a DISCA mission, defense support of civil authorities, or in this one, humanitarian, you're in support of the State Department. You're in support of these other people.
So
You
State
can't lean
Department's
forward.
State Department's
State
the
Department
lead
has
on
the
this.
lead, right? Yeah,
Gotcha.
these other people, right? So, and so I made sure they had FaceTime with the ambassador, and we were the smoothest running operation. But I'll tell you, on day two, I was walking around with the ambassador, and this guy who's SES from Border Patrol.
No, where are you? Are you in Kuwait
It
now?
was in Kuwait at this time. The first time around was Kuwait. The second one, I ended up doing too well, so I ended up having to take care of the problem in Qatar, right? So I
Right.
ended up. So this guy leans into my ear and he goes, "Hey, dude, we know each other, right?" I look at him and go, "I have no idea who you are, dude."
Yeah, man.
And he goes, no, we know each other. I said, okay, well, I run security for an agency in DC and stuff like that. Because not I'm not in DC. I said, well, where are you? He goes, El Paso. I said, all right, dude, you're not gonna believe this, but I used to be the aide to the chief of the National Guard Bureau. But he goes, damn it, that's it. You're that son of a bitch that took care of everybody. I was the aide, but I made sure his bosses were taken care of. I made sure people got FaceTime because you're the gatekeeper, right?
You are the gatekeeper. Yeah,
You're the
man.
gatekeeper, right? And he remembered me taking care of people, and that was 10 years earlier. Well, not 10
Dude.
years, it was probably 16
It's
years earlier.
it's
And so
the
I
world
got
keeps
instant
getting
cred.
smaller and
It
smaller,
does.
doesn't it?
And I ended up getting instant cred. So my thing was always taking care of people, and then those people would take care of me somehow, some way. And so another instance, when I became a battalion commander, there was 13 people that were supposed to get that gig, and I ended up getting it. It's just I had a lot of experience when I came back to Maryland. They didn't want me to come back to Maryland. I was on active duty. I was AGR out of North Carolina stuff. I was a pandemic influenza planner for all DoD, which is one of the global plans. So it's directly for SecDef. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Right.
Also, so you're at the global, and when H1N1 popped out, you're at the White House. You're at the SecDef. You're explaining this stuff. And then I had to take the road show on the across the world because nobody knew how to handle a pandemic. They do now, right? But back in 2009, they didn't.
Oh, wow.
So I got to learn how you can't touch this piece without affecting. So
You started
regular guys don't get to see that, how things go
understanding how
together.
everything fits together.
Absolutely. So I was, with that it makes a whole lot. So I take over, and Superstorm Sandy hits in the western part of Maryland. You remember that from New Jersey?
Yeah,
So
man.
people were dying. And so a lot of time, and this is the same thing in any National Guard unit or a lot of units, they'll sit with their backs against the wall. Because why? What people don't know is the leader's job is leading up to the event, not the event. You should just be reading the newspaper at that point in time. You have to make sure they have the right training.
It's about the
They have the
preparation,
right
right,
plan.
Joe?
Yeah, it's the preparation, right? If there's no preparation, then nothing happens. So
Right.
people sit against the wall. So then the National Guard never gets out on the highway to rescue people. So against orders, I actually ended up going to Western Maryland because I had engineers. And so I get out there and I see this captain of the state police and this fire chief, and they're like, hey, I understand you got this heavy equipment. We do. So can you do this? I said, absolutely. But you got to do me something first, because I
Yeah.
understood the system, right? I said, have you put in a request for assistance? Like, no, what do I have to do that for? I said, okay, I can't, I'm already moving my guy towards you, right? That equipment's moving to dig you up. I said, but he can't actually do anything when he gets there unless he has a request for assistance from you. And it has to go all the way up to the governor's office, right? The state
Yeah.
headquarters, and then comes back down as a mission assignment because they're tracking funding. Everything's about funding and resources, right? So I'm like, I said, give me a second. So I call a buddy of mine who ran operations for the National Guard side of the house, right? I'm like, dude, help me out here. Who do these guys need to talk to? They're like, hey, Billy Bob, got it. So go back and say, hey, Billy Bob, you need to talk to. Shit, that's my cousin. All right, dude, call your cousin.
Yeah. Get your
Tell him you
cousin
do
on the
that.
phone, man. Yeah.
And so then we end up helping them set up packages. We're in with the state police operations center with the county. The county guy had gotten emergency operations center guy got fired because he wasn't doing anything.
Mm.
So we're like, hey, we can do packages. I said, why don't we get my engineers that can clear the road for you? You get your EMTs, you get a police, and you get fire, and then the electric. They go in small packages. They go down these roads. They get to the people's house, and shit, dude, things are taken care of. Like, where'd you learn that? Just experience and watching. I knew we could move stuff forward because I watched the Chief of the National Guard Bureau move MAFs, which are the firefighting aircraft, the C-130s that can drop the retardant that you saw in LA.
Yeah.
He would move those from North Carolina to California, right? In a training status, because that's legal. Can't affect anything until you get an order from the president saying you can do that.
Right.
So meanwhile, he has his legislative affairs and his planners work in the White House and Congress to get the appropriate authorities. It changes, boom, you're now federalized.
Everything's already on the way.
But it's already there instead
Yeah.
of waiting until you get to go and you've just killed 3 days.
Right.
So little things. So you learn tricks like
These
that.
are the
right?
things that you've learned along the way.
Absolutely. And so when I was a brigade commander, I wanted to train my guys. They didn't know how to deal with civilians. They did not. So I had a whiz bang ranger kind of guy. He said, hey, sir, I want my troops to get Norwegian badges. And what these ruck badges are is if you do a 30-kilometer, 18.2-mile hike with 25 pounds on your back, and you're sanctioned by the Norwegian government, you get a foreign medal. Medals are everything to young troops, right?
Right.
I'm like, yeah, we can do that. He goes, yeah, we can do it on Andrews Air Force Base. I'm like, oh no, we're not. Your company is located in Southern Maryland. Your recruiting sucks and your retention sucks. Nobody even knows you exist, and we don't do anything for Southern Maryland. We're taking over the county, and we're going to do it on the main roads, including the highway. That's never going to fly. Oh, yes, it will. So
Yeah.
I call up the mayor. I get it. So I bring my staff with me. We meet with the mayor of the town. We meet with the county council, the county executive. Say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to use your police force for traffic control. I
Sure.
want
A
to use your
little
emergency
escort,
operations center.
secure the
Well,
roadways.
join interagency, right?
Yeah,
We're
man.
now for the first time ever. So when a hurricane hits Southern Maryland, we're not handing out the business cards.
No, everybody's got a relationship with each other.
Right? And it was funny because I got a young captain who gets up there and he starts telling the sheriff, the county sheriff, what he's going to do. I need you to do this on these roads. I'm like, whoa, stop. I said, we're supporting them.
Yeah.
He's supposed to tell you.
Sheriffs love to be told what to do.
So he was like, and the guy just chuckled. He goes, got it. So,
yeah.
And so these young guys had to learn to brief politicians then I brought the news in. Then I brought people from all around the world in to do this. And we did it instead of 25 pounds on your back, you did it with 25 pounds of food. And we filled up all the friggin' food bags down there. Right. And I had the local DC news. We had the Baltimore news there, recruiting, retention. I called my buddies in the FBI, Secret Service, Sheriff's Department, everything. I said, hey, I need a job fair for these kids in high school. They don't know what they're doing. I'm going to set up a job fair on the side of this event. I need you guys to set up with your recruiters and whatever whiz bang things. I'll bring in Blackhawks and we'll do something cool for the friggin' kids and stuff. Man, and then you teach them that, hey, you can get free college out of this. And the parents go, ooh, free college.
Yeah, man. Look at all the benefits.
Yep. So afterwards, the guy that was in charge of the emergency operations center said, dude, before this, I could give a shit less about the National Guard. You guys have a seat at the table anytime a storm or anything else comes down here. Brigade commander did the same thing, took over Ocean City, Maryland. I put out the word. I did not realize it would go out so far and wide, but 25 different federal, state, and local agencies, including hospitals, police, fire, Coast Guard. We had Marines. We took over for an anti-terrorism. There was a dirty bomb incident and riots. And you know what? We in the you learn that from Baltimore, because I didn't tell you, the same captain that was in the police force, the state police out in Superstorm Sandy. When I showed up for the riots in Baltimore and I go into the state police emergency operations center, which is, one of those trailers,
Sure.
like, dude, it's the same guy.
Yeah, man.
And so things like that. But so now paying forward, right?
Networking and connecting and
remember that young captain I told you about that tried to tell the sheriff? Well,
right.
guess what he just did? He's now a lieutenant colonel in the DC National Guard, and he just had to run all the outer security for the inauguration. And I got a phone call from him going, "Sir, thank God. I know I made fun of you and all
Yeah,
do that
yeah,
stuff."
yeah.
And he said, "But I knew what I was doing." He knew exactly who to go to, who to talk to, how to talk to him, and stuff
Build
like
those
that.
relationships,
You
man.
build those relationships, you train the next people. I would, but this is, so you're talking about resiliency, right? So, and I heard you, I do my prep work, right? I did watch you on a couple episodes that you had in podcasts,
Yeah.
and you were up in front of an audience and you said, "Hey, you never take care of yourself." And that's where my problem was.
Mm.
Remember, so as I'm moving up, I had to go for my master's degree part-time. I had to work my full-time job, and I had to be a battalion commander at the same time. I never saw my family. I never saw home. So you don't take care of yourself.
Joey, how long were you how long you were married? When did you get married, bro?
I got married in 1994. She met me at my first night in the old guard, drunk off my ass in Old Town, not in Old
In
Town,
'94. All right. So
we've been together since 1986.
dude, so Nicole and I got married in '95. So
Yeah.
a similar run. Go ahead. I was curious, bro.
And I learned a lot from, so I adopted her daughter who had cerebral palsy and stuff. So I learned a lot from that.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, man. I got you. That's fucking, hey, this fucking thing of ours, bro. There's things that matter. There's things that matter, and there's things that don't. And that's the thing. That's the thing that fucking matters, bro. Absolutely.
So what I just recently figured out was I didn't take care of myself. I was just too busy. Because, man, when I was a battalion commander, I had units all over the state of Maryland. So on a given weekend, I'd travel 500 miles. Southern Maryland, Northern Maryland, Western Maryland, so I could talk to the troops, see what was going on, let them know how important it was. When I was a company commander,
you're letting them know how important it is.
At
the expense of ever doing that shit for yourself, man.
Right? So then you're only doing 2 or 3 hours sleep a night. That's how I didn't get fired. So it's funny, people never want to see me show up. I think I told you that this again happened when I went to the Maryland Guard, happened even when I became Brigadier General. I get the phone call, say, "Hey, congratulations, you're going to be this Brigadier General, you're going to be this Deputy Commanding General of this infantry division." And I'm good. So I tell my wife, because I wanted to actually get out, because I knew how much bullshit was involved. Right. And then, so then I get a call back from the same guy who happened to be that guy that I asked for help in Superstorm Sandy. He goes, "Hey, Joe, I've got a problem." He was a general officer at the time. He goes, "Yeah, so it's politics, right? Half the headquarters was in Virginia, half the quarters in Maryland. And so I'm Maryland and the commander is Virginia. And this guy was like, he goes, he doesn't want you. You don't have the right pedigree. You weren't an infantry battalion commander. You were an engineering battalion commander. He didn't know jack crap, right? He didn't know that I was a DLD. Well, he did in my resume, but it wasn't what he wanted to see, which was pure infantry. But that's stupid. Now you've got this thought mentality. And you don't know anything.
Right.
Right.
That's the only thing you know. Right.
So he goes, "You just need to show up to this 1 week training thing that they're getting ready for a warfighter and just do your thing. You always do your thing." Because I've never worried about people. So I get there and he's not there. He's not there. Nobody's really talking to me. I end up seeing some guys that I know. And so I go to bed at Sunday night. So it's 2 days. This guy's still not there. Man, it's 10:30 night. My phone rings and it's the chief of staff. I'm a colonel. He's a colonel. He goes, "Where the hell are you?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm in bed." And he goes, "Your ass needs to be here in front of the boss standing tall." I'm like, "Are we really going to do this? I'm going to be a private?" And he's just trying to tear me. I'm like, yeah, I'll get there when I get there. And so I go across post. I'm on the other side of post. I get there and he's got his minions. he told his guys, which were the staff, do not talk to this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing. Make sure he fails. And so he's talking. He goes, yeah, I got to talk to him. He calls me into his office and he goes, hey, Colonel Reale, this general says your shit doesn't stink. This general says your shit doesn't stink. The National Guard Bureau leadership, because they knew me, says your shit doesn't stink. He says, me, I don't think you can do the job. And I just start laughing. He goes,
Dude,
you think
that's
this is
exactly what you want. Somebody to tell you that they
you just pissed me off.
underestimate me. Go ahead,
Yep.
motherfucker.
So he and I just started laughing. He goes, something funny? I said, yeah, do you think you're the first motherfucker that has ever underestimated me? I said, sir. And then he goes, have you ever done a warfare? I'm like, sir, I was a DLD commander, which is digital liaison. I was in Korea in the 4-star headquarters talking back to the 8th Army 3 different times and 3 major exercises. He goes, oh, you've done the real thing. You think? You know, and so he goes, oh, you got to read this, read. So I prepare. All I did was read all that other crap, the manuals. I don't care. But I read the after action reports from the 3rd Infantry Division, the 25th ID, 82nd, because there was a new concept called a SAC-P. Sounds like a venereal disease, but it's Secure Area Command Post. It's in the rear. That's where there's 3 command posts in the division. There's the main where the boss is. Then there's attack, and that goes off front, right? And that's the operations guy. So I read it, and so it comes to the event, and about 3 weeks later, unbeknownst to me, he had gone and seen our senior mentor, which is really a grader, right? It's a retired 3-star, and he goes, "Hey, I understand you don't know what you're doing. Seriously, you tell an outside."
Okay,
so what? Yeah, he says. So what, actually, you guys pretty good. He goes, "So what do you think you can do?" I said, "Well, I read this AR, I read this." I said, I liked what the 3rd did here. I liked what the 25th did, and the 82nd built on that. I think I'm going to do this." He goes, "Oh, you're right on target." And so at the end, so about 3 days into this, now little did I know, again, it's all about relationships. The brigade that was supposed to support us came out of South Carolina. It's called the MEB, Maneuver Enhancement Brigade. Well, I had done them a favor when I was a brigade commander, and I took care of one of my units fell under their command, and they had a problem with it. And I took care of it. I fired a couple of guys, got a couple of guys in there replaced. And they're like, "Holy shit, sir, it's you!" And instantly, right? And they're like, "Hey, this is the guy." And I don't go anywhere by myself. I went with. I tried to bring 30 people with me, planners from Maryland. Again, it's a dog eat dog world, right? You can't look good to somebody else who's trying to become a general, right? So the pendulum, it just gets a little pointy at
Sure,
there.
man.
So the full timers in the Maryland side, actually, any full timer was not allowed to come with me. So that, and they figured that would hamper me and I'd fail.
Right.
Virginia's looking for me to fail, Maryland's looking for me to fail, but I still had 15 folks. And dude, they were friggin' on. I had a young lady who was who just a fresh major, but she'd been in the 82nd Airborne, and I'd given her a shot and got her promoted to major. And dude, she was a logistician, but now she's an infantry battalion commander. That's how good she was. She was my operations person. I had to have people I trusted, right? Because they didn't give me. They stripped my command post of all the good people and took them for the other 2 command posts. So I don't go anywhere by myself. I bring whatever I can, man. Bring as many resources you can until someone tells you you can't.
Nice.
They exist somewhere, take them from someone else, right? So, and so I told everybody else, I said, I don't like the name SAC-P. So everybody has a task force name. We're going to call ourselves Task Force Dark Horse. I'm like, why that, sir? I said, you don't know what Dark Horse is? That's the son of a bitch who shows up and no one thinks they're going to kick ass and they're the ones that win. That's what we're going to do. Get them all motivated. Dude, day 3, we're kicking ass in the back, in the rear. And so I get a phone call from the division commander's trying to get a hold of me. I may have purposely blown them off.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
So that chief of staff calls, "Hey, you need to take a call from the boss." So I finally do, and he goes, "Brother." I went from being
brother
not
now.
talking to being brother.
Oh, man. Isn't it funny, man?
So when you get graded at the end, all 3 command posts you're looking at, the only command post, and by the way, the other divisions didn't pull us off either. I had all green lights.
Yeah.
We hit every go. We hit every friggin' go, and which passed the division, which allowed us to deploy.
Nice.
Like, dude, seriously? I'm gonna work but my problem is I work my ass off and I do that. Same thing happened when I went from Kuwait, right? We took care of everything. The president was ecstatic, the ambassador was ecstatic. Then all of a sudden, Qatar was all screwed up with the CENTCOM stuff. And so they said, "Oh, we got to fix that. We'll send."
So give the listener a little history about what was going on there, Joe.
So if you remember, Afghanistan was collapsing. And if you remember the scenes, people jumping, we're trying to, take them out on C-130s and
And fucking people
135s,
at
and
the
they're just
handing their
they're hitting
babies
babies over the
over
fence.
the gate.
Dude, it was so what I was totally impressed with was how good our soldiers, 18, 19, 20 years old, you'd be so proud. Man, it looked like Ellis Island's going through that reception station.
Crazy.
The young ladies and the young medics, they're grabbing babies. I mean, they were kids without parents. They were families. It looked like Ellis Island when you watch when Vito comes over
Sure, sure. Yeah. Just
in The Godfather, right?
fucking thousands of
It's
people.
yeah, and so it's total. And we took care of everybody. There was no problems. So they said, okay, we got to fix this. We'll just bring this guy Real and move him over the cutter, and we'll fix it. Real can't do anything by himself. He's a jackass, right? Just is. So I immediately call up the ambassador in Kuwait, the U.S. ambassador. I said, hey, ma'am. She goes, let me guess. You're the Stucky. I'm like, yes, I am. And she goes, what do you need? I said, ma'am, I understand there's 4 ambassadors over there. I need you to reach out to your compadres and vouch for me and get me 15 minutes with each of them because they didn't really get along. And so she did. I got over there. She'd already, and one of them actually ended up showing me the note that she sent. I was like, holy crap. It's basically, hey, listen to this guy. And
Nice.
so we got things rolling really, really well and stuff like that. And what I realized when I got to the table is the active component. And they're always interested. I love them because they do it full time. They know what they're doing. But everybody around the planning table was his staff. And the people I weren't even allowed in the rooms were the ambassadors, State Department folks, the NGOs, Red Cross, Red Crescent, they weren't allowed in them. They were the ones doing the work,
Right.
right? FBI wasn't allowed in. I'm like, okay, you guys all need to go away, and I need the civilians here, and you guys take the back seaters. You let them know what's going, but they're the ones running it. We're just supporting it.
Mm.
And so that turned around, and the guy, the SES from CBP, called his buddy, who was the other SES, and he came up and he says, hey, I'm told to listen to you. Very helpful, right? But that unit that was on the ground, that brigade and that brigade commander, I brought 40 people with me. I brought my own headquarters section, and I wasn't supposed to. But I went to my boss and said, Real can't do anything. I need planners.
Right.
So bring all these planners. And my logistician became my operations op. That's the other thing. I try to figure out who's good at what and moving. I don't care what your role is. I'm going to put you in the role I need you in.
You don't need to
And
be awesome at everything,
yep,
Joe.
no. So we get there, and so I said, hey, stop moving this around. We need to do this. So the guy that I had kind of in charge of things comes, hey, sir, they told us to go F ourselves. They don't work for you. And he thought I was going to explode. I'm like, you know what? God damn it, you're right. Better be lucky than good. At that moment in time, a phone call was occurring with so the Army headquarters, which was out of Shaw, and so the 2-star that's running, the 3-star that's running that's having. I'm like, I go to my aide. I said, dude, get me into that meeting. It's a general officer's call. Can't get me on electronically. Can't get me. So I said, man, you better get me on by the phone. So 10 minutes left in this meeting. He gets me on the phone. I hear him. My boss is talking for me. I'm like, hey, boss, check it out. I'm here. Can I say to myself? Can I talk to myself? This was the RSENT, and the RSENT commanders listening, the staff is listening. It's all these general officers. And this jackass from Boston, I'm going, hey, sir, check it out. Said, this is what happened. Brigade commander said, go screw yourself. I don't work for you. And you know what, sir? He's absolutely right. He doesn't work for me because your night orders come through the night, right? First came from CENTCOM to RSENT to my division, and basically said, Brigadier General Reale shows up with 1 aide, a driver, and a PSD team. He will be the liaison connection between the Air Force and the Army, and he'll be stationed at the Air Force Base. That's what it said. So this guy was absolutely right.
Yeah.
I know just because I'm a general does not mean I have any authority, right? And I said, so, sir, I hate people who are problem identifiers and not problem solvers. I said, so the solution to this problem, sir, is 1 of 2 things. I said, what I have on tap right now is a bus that will be in here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I will take all 40 of my planners. I will stick them on a plane and send them back to Kuwait. I will then get in the car with my driver, my PSD team, and my aide, and I will go back to the Air Force, and I will liaison with the Air Force. Or, sir, you could change your night order and make me in charge of everything, and I'll take care of you. And I
Nice.
went dead silent. And my staff in the room was like, oh, he's dead. And I'm like, well, looks like I get to go home early. That's
Right.
the worst case scenario. I'm a National Guardsman. You're just going to relieve me and I'm going to go home. And the guy that I took over for was a 2-star. He was a theater support commander. He's like, Reale's right, because he didn't want to come back. And so at that point, they changed the night order. I got in charge. I got rid of that unit because I didn't trust him with the crap. And we turned everything around. So first we took care
So
of
he
the
put you in
Afghans.
charge of the whole operation
Yep. He
there.
said, okay. So the night order came out, said I was in charge. I could have my 40 planners. And so now formally I was put in charge and I could actually do things. Right. Oh, can't.
Right.
You can negotiate, right? But that's just a pain in the ass.
And that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have a lot of time, did you?
No, see the move because it's life or death. Really is that point. There's people starving. People. When I got there's people with human shit still on them. It was pretty disgusting. They already had one all-out brawl with the folks that were there.
Right.
They were just upset what's going on. They had a demonstration. So took care of them. And I think I told you at that point, I didn't realize that my soldiers weren't being taken care of. Because I was too worried about, the refugees type thing.
Right.
And so we took care of them. And then my sergeant major was like, hey, have you talked to the chaplain lately? I'm like, why am I talking to the chaplain? So they had 5 soldiers that want to commit suicide. It's like, holy shit, let's figure this out. Well, it turned out their living conditions sucked. That brigade that was ahead of us had 1-bedroom apartments, were working 8-hour shifts. These MP companies, these medical companies were sleeping on top of each other with 3 showers, men and women, just 3 showers, 3 latrines, working 24 basically ops. So they were working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. They even got their uniforms were dirty. It was because they were thinking they were going to Afghanistan. They had the wrong equipment, so we got the right equipment, and then figured out what we needed. Because I worked in Washington D.C. so long, there is emergency contingency funding. I figured out we needed about $140 million to get this place up to snuff. So, man, I called the the deputy secretary for defense and deputy secretary for state. Call them up on their personal cells because, believe it or not, you can do that with that stupid star in the chest. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
folks, I don't mean to bother you, but this is what I need. This is why I need it, and there's the plan. And we got that money and got people taken care of. Turned out to be one of the best places to be stationed, and
Got the facilities up to speed for the soldiers. And
yep.
I think if I remember too, you actually got some therapists and some counseling and some one-on-one time with
medical. Yep. In those medical commands, we had, behavioral health specialists and stuff. And so what we did was I went to the State Department because there's a lot of the young ladies that wanted to do this. I said, hey, would you guys do me a favor? Could you start a support group and mentor these young soldiers? And they did. They set up, it was like, I want to say 150 female soldiers from across the Marines, Navy, everything. It was joint, right? They did.
And they were all working that operation, Joe?
There were for them, right? So they were telling them, hey, how you can get college education. So what you need to do to get in the State Department. Yeah, these are some great, and because a lot of these ladies had PhDs and master's degrees, and they knew where things were, so they arranged it on the economy, so these young ladies could get haircuts, stylists and stuff, and then
help
the FBI,
make them feel normal
absolutely.
A little bit.
And then I called the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador in Qatar, and she was an incredible woman. And I said, hey, ma'am, you said if I need something, I said, I need something. I said, I need you to have a personal sit down with 20 female soldiers every Sunday at your residence and have coffee and tea and just talk to them. And she did.
Nice.
For an 18-year-old kid to talk to a U.S. ambassador.
Right.
I mean, they've never seen that. And then I took a couple of soldiers and put them in with me, and I brought them throughout the division headquarters. One of them ended up freaking flying a plane on me. I was a little scared on that one, but there's a couple of female soldiers, and so one wanted to be a pilot. So the chief warrant officers, everywhere I went, I either had a plane or a helicopter. So they let her behind the scenes. They told her what she needed to do. Meanwhile, I had another one. These were MPs. She was actually a small town police officer in Ohio. She was in the reserves. And so we taught her about public, because she goes, it's none for nothing. The Army is just a waste of it. I'm like, wait a minute, you're this artist, and she felt the wheel spinning back home. I'm like, you don't understand. You can get into the high school, you can get into middle school, you can start a program where you're mentoring kids in art, and meanwhile you're there talking to them and tutoring. And so she ended up starting a Facebook page because I got her in with public affairs.
Okay.
And she called back to her chief of the police force, and the guy said, absolutely, you can start a program like that, and you can start the Facebook page and get social media going for the town. And
Nice.
and all of a sudden she was just stoked. And then I
Gosh.
made those two soldiers go back to the other soldiers and say, okay, this is what life is about when you take care of each other. Like
Right.
even when I was a company commander, there was an hour every Sunday where everybody in the unit had to come together. And people would switch business cards because they were, hey, this guy needs a job. This guy needs, I would bring in, first I brought in bankers to teach them how to deal with checking accounts and stuff. Then I brought in
Right.
fidelity managers because fidelity was around the corner to teach them how to invest because it's all about retirement and taking care of your family and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And then I brought in colleges and universities to tell them how to tap into the VA funding to get college and better themselves. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, man. You know, Joe, I listen to you, and I mean, it's mission after mission, objective after objective, taking care of people, right? And
What it's all about.
I'd be remiss if I didn't call you out and go, like, who's taking care of you during this entire time,
So there's a
bro?
problem. Nobody is, right? And I had a lieutenant colonel when I was in the Pentagon. Again, I got to work in the Joint Staff. I should have never been in the Joint Staff. So I got to see, you know, the National Command Center. I got to see how ordered. So especially for a National Guard guy, right?
Yeah.
But this guy, I remember he was telling me he's a bit of an introvert. He goes, dude, my biggest problem when I was in Iraq was I was a battalion commander. There's no one I can download on because I'm the boss. And as you move up, there's no one you can download on.
Hmm.
There just isn't. I mean, you can try to download on your wife, your brother, or whatever like that, but do they understand what's going on? Have they ever been in that kind of situation? And when you're the boss or you're the leader, right? If you start going down to talk to people, right? And I say, hey man, I got this problem. It doesn't work really well, right? You gotta, so you end up keeping the shit into yourself.
Not in that structured.
You don't
Yeah.
realize you're doing that, right? And then you can't go to your compadres because they want you to, you're
They,
in a
they,
no,
there's a part of them that wants you to get
wants you to fail,
sideways.
right?
Mm.
So basically, you are in a zero defect organization. No failures, no nothing. Because you fail, you're out. And trust me, I got the riot act read to me a couple of times, saying I couldn't like that project at the beach. I
Yeah.
couldn't do that. I wasn't supposed to do that road march because they said I was misappropriating military gear. I had a couple of lieutenants who wanted to work and fix up the fire stations in Baltimore because they're over 100 years old. They needed the work. They needed the work done. It's training for them. It's training because they're plumbers, they're electricians. They need that. It
Right.
was perfect, right? And we made a deal with the mayor. I went and met with the mayor. We signed it, but somebody who didn't like me at the National Guard level found out about it because, of course, I actually brought in the Today Show and stuff. It's
Yeah.
all about, that's what
Right.
it's all about,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's how you get resources, and that's it, right? And so they said they read me right. I said I couldn't do it, stuff. So we had stuff. I was like, really? You just screwed this up. They
Mm.
had done two beautiful new kitchens for two different firehouses, which actually again helped out when the riots happened because those guys remembered us
Yeah.
and took care of us when we're in the city. Um, so and those ideas came from lieutenants. All I do is blow them up.
Right.
I just go big or go home, right? But yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff you can do, but people are afraid because it's zero defect. Because I'll tell you, this was a great example. So I'm a brigade commander. It was a 4-day exercise in Ocean City, Maryland. We're taking it over. I briefed my bosses. So you have an A tag in charge of Army in the state, and then you have the tag in charge of all of it. Said, hey, ma'am, this is what we're doing. She gives a thumbs up. I said, ma'am, don't forget, you need to go talk to the governor. Yeah, you got to talk to the boss.
Mm.
I'm going to bring in new stations. I'm going to blow this up. I mean, we used the high school kids. We had Hollywood makeup artists, blood, gore. We overloaded their hospitals with dirty patients because that's what they asked us to do. We brought in all the new stations, but the day before the event was supposed to kick off, a guy published a news article that said Governor OK's terrorist attack in Ocean City. Governor OK's, and he didn't even know about it because no one briefed him. And so I saw the WTF to my boss, what the hell is going on? And so they were like, hey, you need to cease and desist. I'm like, I can't. I've got Northcom here. I've got our North, which is major. I mean, those are combatant commands coming in and the Army component coming in with money and resources. I've got the South Carolina National Guard here, some units. I've got the Navy here. I've got the Coast Guard. I got the FBI already here. They're all here. They're ready to go tomorrow morning. I can't stop. They're like, great, just be prepared to be resign on Monday morning.
Yeah. Be prepared. Be
Yep, and
prepared
and
to
that's
get
how
the
it
axe.
and they wash their hands of it. and turned out to be one of the best exercises that ever happened. Got all these accolades. They got all the accolades, and
Yeah, yeah.
I don't care. It's not about me. And so, but can they fire you when you're taking care of people? When you're not? So when I was a company commander, I went from the worst company to the strongest company in the brigade, right?
Right,
By sheer numbers, I went from 60% to 100%. I only had half the people that were supposed to be there showing up. Everybody showed up because
right,
I'd go to their house and freaking go find them.
right,
I also took care of them. I made sure there was a reason they didn't sit with their backs against the wall. I made them come up with their training schedules instead of me. You tell me. You don't want to do the same thing every year. You tell me
right,
what works for you guys. Pick the weekends that are going to work for you. Let's do it as a team. And so I would show up to my battalion headquarters with all my squad leaders and my platoon sergeants. And the battalion commander was like, "Hey, they need to leave here." I'm like, "No, sir. It's their company, not mine. I just showed up a year ago. I'll be leaving next year. They'll still be there doing the same thing. They know
right.
what they need." All right. So you do that kind of stuff. Those are things, but zero defect. If something goes wrong, your career is over. I just
Hmm.
got lucky. Nothing ever, but that's because I stayed up and only got 2 or 3 hours sleep a night, right?
Yeah.
So I was trying
Hey,
to talk to
Joe,
people and see people.
wh-
Yeah.
what,
So
like,
yes, I do have PTSD now because of it,
yeah,
and that's why I'm
and
crying.
yeah, no shit. In law enforcement, bro, there's that
Yep.
threat. Like everybody wants you to raise your hand and say that
Yep.
you're struggling and that you want to get help. But often, right, there are some
Yep.
agencies and some um organizations that actually allow that to happen without you being treated like a liability.
Yep. Not in these fields, man. Not in these career fields. Soldiers, okay, but once you stop becoming a lieutenant colonel, remember, it's getting down to less than 1%. So what's
Right,
differentiating? And people always say, so I never kissed up. I always kissed down. I always took care of the troops. You take care of
right,
your troops, they'll take care of you, right? If you
right.
don't, they'll take care of you in other ways. And so
So
I always got a phone
what
call.
did you do to keep your sanity, Joe? What did you do to fucking
So I
listen?
probably didn't do a good
It's
job.
been 40 years, bro. It's
Yep.
been 40 years. And so
So, so
um
me, I love working out. That's where I got to blow off the steam.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for me, and if I can't work out, I'm just a miserable son of a bitch. So that's to me getting the steam out and it's just
Good.
endorphins that fly.
Right.
I've always loved it, always enjoyed it, but
Yep.
I need that time. And so that's what I did. And and I get excited when I can take care of my troops. Like when I
Right.
show up in Kuwait and I'm pumping them up because they did such an incredible job, and I get this first lieutenant comes up to me. He says, "Sir, I don't know if you remember me, but he was one of my engineers as an E4 in one of my companies, and now he says the only reason I'm a lieutenant right now is because of you."
Isn't that awesome? Where you can impact somebody's life like that.
Absolutely. Well, when that lieutenant colonel from DC calls me and says, "Thank God you did what you did," so take the time to teach us and man, one person, I'm just a single point of failure from one person. But so most officers will just not take the risks and stuff. They'll just look out and they'll do the same thing over and over again. To me, that's just the definition of insanity, right? Doing
Right.
the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
No doubt. No
So
doubt. So I mean,
um,
that's great that you've got that
yeah,
outlet, exercise, hitting the gym, and all that. Um, how does your marriage withstand 40
I
years
gotta
of
give you gotta give her
fucking
cred, right? You gotta give her cred.
deployments, bro, and
So I got very
fucking
lucky. You said mentors, right? So
yeah,
when I was the aide to the chief of National Guard Bureau, we would be gone for 10, 14 days overseas somewhere, come back. And he really put an emphasis on families. The first person, he's the head of the organization, man. Imagine the head of a huge organization, right?
hmm,
There's what, 600,000 of us between the Air and the Army National Guard, all over the world in 50 different countries, and we're trying to visit all of them. And he always took, if that phone rang and it was his family, I was to get him.
right.
Now I had to use a little bit of common sense to be then we checked
Sure, of
that for the
course, of
president.
course.
But immediately that's the first thing. You know what? And then the weekend came. He was what was known as a geo bachelor, right? Worst thing in the world, right? You live separate from your wife because of the mission. And, so he would get in that car and go home to see his wife and stuff like. So when we landed in that plane, I'm like, boss, I'm gonna do our travel vouchers and stuff. You need anything from me because I'm disappearing for 3 or 4 days.
Right,
I'm gonna go see mom. I'm gonna go
right,
see my wife and stuff like that. And it's funny, and that's what I do. I disappear and make sure I try to take care of her, or my kids. do whatever I could. But I missed a lot of things, man. Missed a lot, right? Because I
Yeah.
was gone 80% of the time. And I'll tell you, so I could see it affected it. Still, I think it still affects my marriage to this moment in time. I really do, because you start living kind of separate lives when you're doing that, right? But
Right.
she's a good woman, she's strong, and she takes care. So and it's always been that way ever since I've known her, because she met me when I was a private in the Army.
Right.
So
So
I think
what do you do now, man? What do you do now? See, because so you know a little bit about me and my journey, man,
mhm.
and my failures, right? And
Yeah,
um I didn't always embrace the failure, because
that's how you learn, dude.
I couldn't see at the time the lesson that was being learned. I was ashamed
Yep,
of the failure, right? I never embraced it.
yep.
I've grown, right? Continue to grow. And so my failures have made me a better husband, a better father, a better friend,
Oh, absolutely.
a better brother. And but it took me, God damn, Joey, it took me a bit, man, to understand that it's never too late to right the wrong,
Correct. As long as you got breath in your lungs, man, you can
right?
right the wrong.
It's never too late to right the wrong. So
Yep.
I tell my Nicole, like it's like having a near death experience, man. It's like I can sometimes if you've never come close to losing it, you can't appreciate it. At least I mean
Oh
that's
yeah,
it's just like, oh, it's just the way it is. Like, oh,
yeah,
there's no expiration date. Like we're just gonna run this fucking thing out. But
absolutely.
when you almost lose it, I think and for me, it gave me a sense of urgency, man, that like I can't squander this
You can.
time.
Yeah, I learned that just from my dad and my brother passing early ages.
Yeah.
It's like, man, time's against me anyways. But I
Right.
will say, so my mom had some problems when I was growing up, so that's why I never went towards the alcohol and anything
Right.
else like that. So I just, because I knew I would like it, so it just wasn't, just stayed away from that. But
Sure.
it's just too much into the work and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're away from the house, so that's not good. So I try when I'm here, I try to be in the moment, try to give everything I can.
Right.
But damage was done, right? Because when you're gone 80% of the time, you're just gone. And then their minds start wondering, so what are you doing? You know? And is
Right.
this woman out there, or is that? And how do you say I trust me, I don't have the time because I was only getting 2 hours sleep to begin
Right.
with, man.
Right. Right. Right.
So I
But
can't control one woman, never
it
mind.
doesn't
Yeah.
change the thoughts.
Yeah, oh no, thoughts are there, right? Absolutely. Especially when, so yeah. So like I said, for me is going out in my own world, working out, but it manifests in other ways. So now it's uncontrolled crying, right? The other thing is, I mean, imagine, okay, there's little old me, and unfortunately the family's in the car, right? You ever see the Bay Bridge, Chesapeake Bay Bridge in Maryland between Annapolis and the Eastern Shore?
Yeah.
The highest expansion bridge, right? Dude, it's 80 miles an hour. I am got the window down and I am pounding on the window of the car next to me. That's how pissed off I was.
Hmm.
This woman tried to cut me off and try to brake check me, and that's how much I lost it. So that's where I know there's damage, right?
Yeah.
And
And
so,
so let me be a nosy prick. Um,
sure.
because I love you.
As I always say that before they do that.
What are you doing about that shit, bro?
So this is the first time, right? So I finally went to the VA.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to go through the process, right? So I got an evaluation and stuff. And so that's the first step. So it's talking, right? So
Yeah.
at least it's understanding, because it's funny. You have to go through the evaluation. This literally just happened recently. And she goes, "Hey, listen, don't take it the wrong way. I only got 45 minutes. This is just an evaluation, see where
Yeah.
you need to go and stuff." Hour and a half later, I'm like, "Hey, do you need to cut out here?"
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. It's 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 one of those things, man, that you think you think you've done a lot of hard work in your job.
oh yeah, but not in life, right? Yeah,
No,
you
man,
got you got to you got to
fucking
you got to peel
hard
the layers back,
the
and that's
hard
what it's time
work.
for now. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
man, that's the
didn't tell
hard
you.
work,
So
Joe.
at the time when my brother passed, we were living in DC. Been there 30 years. As a director of security for a huge department, wasn't around a whole lot. I was also brigade commander. My
Yeah.
brother passes of a heart attack. My wife's like, that's it. She sells the house. We moved down to South Carolina, I was telling you.
Yeah.
Get away from that, right? So I downgraded the job a little bit. And so that's why we came up to New Hampshire. So I'm trying to change things, right? Trying to get back to family, so my family's up here, friends are up here. You know, Bobby, he just put that
Yeah.
thing together.
Yeah,
And
man.
so
Bobby's
I got to see a
awesome.
whole bunch of, yeah, got to see a whole bunch of people for the first time in 40 years. That's what it's all about is relationship. And I still stay tight with a lot of people that helped me and helped, along the
Yeah.
way. So,
Well, you've
um,
touched a lot of people
yeah,
over your time in the military for sure.
so yeah. So now it's the next phase of life, right? Is correcting what's wrong upstairs.
Yeah, man.
So
And we can talk offline, man, but I got some resources that actually fucking work with some people that, have
yeah, I
have
was
have
watching
been
some of it.
have
Yeah,
been there, have fucking done it, and have figured out ways for us to rewire our brain. And it's just like
absolutely open to that.
you go, what the fuck? I didn't even know. Right. How
Yeah,
would you?
that's it.
How
Yeah,
would you know?
because the
And
shit's buried so deep, right? You just bury it every year.
dude, it's just, the analogies they use, man. You just keep putting it in a box and
Yeah,
you don't fucking deal with it. And then eventually uh you're forced to deal with it. And I like
absolutely.
dealing with shit on my terms, man. I don't like
Yeah,
being told when and where because it's never convenient, man. And so
no,
we'll figure out some shit together, bro. That's if you'd let me, there would nothing
absolutely.
make my fucking heart feel better than to be able to help and be part of that mission,
Yeah,
bro.
I'm
You
not
know?
that much of a dumbass. I'd take that direction anytime.
Oh my God, bro. You're a master of manipulating the conversation because we never really managed to talk about fucking high school. Um,
Yeah, so I
I,
said,
you
even the
know,
PAO officer for
I've
DOD was like, "Holy shit, you really can lead it."
listen for the
It's down
listener,
low.
man. So when high school seniors go on their senior trip, most of
Oh man,
them
you're really gonna go back there, huh?
most of them go, well, I want to give
Yeah,
people some context, bro.
yep, yep,
Most of them go away with 20 or 30 people and they go to either at the time people go to
Bermuda,
Fort
right?
Lauderdale or Aruba, they go to
Yeah,
somewhere. Well, we didn't go with 20 or 30 people, man.
yeah.
You and I jumped on a plane to go to Barbados because
Oh yeah,
your sister
she was in the Peace
was in
Corps.
the fucking Peace Corps
Yeah,
and
man,
she was assigned there. So our
in a beach
senior
house.
trip uh resulted in you and I landing in Barbados and I don't know, spending a week there or something.
Yep.
Um Going snorkeling with no sunscreen. Uh
Oh yeah, got
and
burned
and
beyond belief.
and then spending a fucking day and a half in bed with blisters and fucking alcohol poisoning, I'm sure was played a
Oh,
role
do
in
you
all
remember the
that.
booze cruise, dude? You
Yeah,
remember the
the
booze
booze
cruise?
cruise
I
and
don't know how many people I got arrested on that because it was boring. And remember, I started a little bit of a food fight and alcohol
yeah, we
fight,
got
and then jumped
I
into this.
distinctly remember you carrying me someplace.
I had to
I
carry you back from that rum bar,
Yeah,
man.
man.
I dropped you and then I left, man. I left my wingman. I went back
You've
because
been taking care of people your entire life, and it was
offline, I got a story about that same bar years
yeah,
later. It was on my first trip with my boss, man.
yeah, that Cockspur rum. That
Oh, dangerous
Yeah,
stuff,
man,
man.
very sneaky that stuff. I think they put something in there. And this is the other thing, man. I always remember about high school. Like you were always like such a solid, good dude, man. I remember you and like you had like a steady girl the whole time in high
Yeah,
school, and it was just, you know, like always, always there for everybody, man. Just nothing but great memories, bro. Nothing but great memories.
absolutely.
Um,
Some more need to be made.
yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that, Joe. I really am. Bobby bust my balls. I mean, last time I was up, I literally from the time that I landed to the time that I left, I was presenting in meetings and doing bullshit. But I gotta go next time I go up, I'm going up at the end of April. Uh I'm gonna be presenting at a conference in I'm thinking Burlington again or somewhere up there, Norwood or I don't know, bro.
Yeah,
But I'm gonna put some time on the back end and hang out and hopefully we can
nice.
connect.
Yeah, that should be right by Missoula.
What do they got you doing these days, brother?
I'm still running security for an agency. I am the
Okay.
one. I am the single point of failure. So it's just me, and I've
You
got
better
about
knock it the fuck off, man. When are you
yeah.
gonna
So it's
smarten up,
interesting.
man?
Again, it's helping people, right? I'm very lucky because
Yeah.
I'm in a law enforcement section of the agency,
Nice.
and so they asked me what they allowed me to go to South Carolina. They're like, hey, all we want you to do is take care of our LEOs, train them to know how to secure things like you do, and so that's what I mostly do is go around and just take care of people and train
Nice.
some good LEOs to know what I know in Homeland Security and take care of business.
And how often does that have you buzzing around the country, bro?
About twice a month, man.
Hey,
I just came back from Utah.
listen,
Yeah,
I'll take twice a
yeah,
month, man. And
yeah.
what are you gone for about 4 or 5 days?
Yeah, it's for the week. Yeah.
All right.
When I first got into this business, it was 3 weeks out of every month, man. And I was in a different city every night. Now it slows down and I get to spend the week at one place.
Good. Hey,
So
listen,
it's kind of nice because I was just in Ogden, Utah, and it's
yeah,
absolutely
man.
gorgeous. People are great.
That's much
So
more digestible, man.
it is,
Good.
but again, it's away from the family, right? So
Yeah. Well,
uh,
is there anything? I'm thinking outside the box. Is there anything maybe every now and then you bring the missus along if it's a decent venue?
yes, but she's like, "What do you want to do? Sit around the hotel, do something all day while you're working?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Whatever you
yeah.
want,
Because
right?
we'll
Whatever you
go
want."
out to
Because there's
dinner at night
yeah,
and fucking, if it's a
yeah.
nice
So
venue.
so it's funny. I do all the traveling. She hates traveling. So we're like polar opposites. So
Yeah, man. My
I am the
Nicole
woman
as
of my
well.
relationship, right?
Yeah,
So I'm man enough to say that I am the woman of
yeah,
my relationship. She watches all the sports.
yeah.
When I first met her, she
That's
watched. I'm a
hysterical.
62 out of I'm a
You're
62
baking
Oilers watch.
cookies while she's
I'm
yelling
watching
at the
H.
TV.
I was with the kids. I'd be watching Disney and watching a little, the Hallmark Christmas movies, dude.
Oh man,
It's
that's
all
funny.
good. You just got to
Well,
know your weaknesses.
Nicole's the same way, bro. She's just like, I don't. How long's the flight? Like,
Yeah.
no, I ain't doing it. It's not. I'm like, I don't mind. I don't give a shit. It's just.
Funny. I'm sick of it now. I'm just totally sick of it.
Oh yeah,
They jam you in there.
the novelty
Yeah.
of traveling has definitely worn off on you, bro. How many
Uh,
countries?
45 countries, man. 50
Yeah, I
states,
would say that
summertime's over.
you've had your
Yeah.
fill of travel, man.
So now when I get the middle seat and someone's elbow is in my rib cage, I politely ask them to remove. I
Yeah.
said it one time a little too loud and I was a little too tired and the whole
Oh
plane turns
man.
and looks and the guy buries himself into the window. I'm
Yeah.
like, oops, I might have screwed that up.
Dude,
I didn't mean to, but
I used to be like, oh, I want to be on the aisle. That way, if there's anything, I'm like, I'll jam myself to the window. I put my sleep mask on and my
uh,
headphones. I
God love
go,
you.
I don't want
I'm
to
up.
hear it. I don't want
I
to
got a few
see
more
it.
problems. I got a few more problems than you, dude. I need that aisle seat so I can
Yeah.
get to the
Nope.
room I need to get to.
It's hysterical. No, bro, I'm out like a light, bro. It doesn't matter.
Well, I
Oh
can sleep
shit.
anywhere.
No
I will
doubt.
tell you that
No
much.
doubt.
So,
Hey man, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, Joe.
yep. Hopefully, I didn't bore the heck out of you, dude.
No, bro, listen. I just think it's life, man. It's decisions. You don't realize the decisions that you make that put you in a
Little
position.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's a bunch of little decisions. You go left or you go right,
Yeah. It
man.
changes the whole trajectory.
It most certainly does. And I think as long as you check me on this, but I think as long as the foundation is like caring,
Yes. You can't
I
go
don't
wrong.
think you
That's why I always told my troops.
I don't think you can make a bad decision, man.
No, no, it's all, and that's what if you lead from the heart, you can never go
Yeah.
wrong. That's what it's really all about.
Leading
So
from the heart,
listen,
man.
yeah, it's just the way it
Dude,
is, man.
high school buddy, Brigadier General Joe Reale.
Thank
Doesn't
God they didn't
I
take
said
background theft.
Mac says, General Reale. I said fucking Joey. Stop calling him fucking General. Go, I'm not calling him General Reale. He's Joey. And please take this the way it's meant. I'm so very
Yep.
proud of you, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for being the way you are. thank you for serving our country and taking care of our troops. And thank you for being a friend, man.
Absolutely, dude. We'll have to definitely stay tight after this, man.
Looking forward to it, bro.
Yeah, it's like I think you owe me a steak dinner or something in Florida.
I'm
not
sure I do. I'm sure I do. And
It's a beautiful thing.
until next time, my friend.
You got it. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully I didn't blow the crap out of you.
Nah, man. And that is that, Joe.
All right, dude.
That's a wrap, bro. Come on.
Nice.
That was great, bro. Are you kidding me? All the fucking leadership nuggets of wisdom and